The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
TV party tonight! TV party tonight!
Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated
To our favorite shows.
Oh, my circuits!
Everybody loves Hippo Toad.
Scary dog!
Pearson at Blurnsville.
Futurama!
Good evening. You are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premiere podcast, TV Party Tonight. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, our favorite show, and that is closer to the truth than it's ever been, is Star Trek Picard, Season 3, brought to you by the good people at Paramount Plus. And I'm sure any number of studios. I don't feel like looking it up right now. The third and final season of the American television series Star Trek Picard features the characters of Jean-Luc Picard in the year of our Lord 2401 as he reunites with the former command crew of the USS Enterprise. Geordi La Forge, Worf, William Riker, Beverly Crusher, Deanna Troi, and whatever iteration of Data they're limping to the bond with, while facing a mysterious new enemy, which is an old enemy, which is a new enemy that's an old enemy, who is hunting Picard's son. The season was produced by CBS Studios in association with Secret Hideout, Weed Road Pictures, and Roddenberry Entertainment, with Terry Matalas serving as showrunner. The season premiered on the streaming service Paramount Plus on February 16, 2023, and ran for 10 episodes until April 20th. And joining me as he has the previous two seasons is all lover of all things science fiction, my brother from another mother and part of our Canadian office, ladies and gentlemen, David Wright. How do you do, sir?
I'm doing good, Mark. I'm happy to be here for a change. I'm just talking about the Picard reviews.
This has been a long time coming. I was thinking about, I don't want to do a tremendous amount of table setting. We have a lot to talk about with this show, but for TikTok purposes, I was thinking about the first two seasons of Picard, and like that first season was really emblematic of a lot of modern TV, especially a lot of streaming TV, where it was very agenda driven. And at the very least, the agenda was, I understand this is popular with a bunch of geeks and dweebs, but we kind of want to do our own thing with it. And we want to put our own stink on this, and we want to do something different. And the fans reacted as fans normally do to changing something that's beloved to something different. They hated it. And it was went poorly. And so the second season, they're like, okay, none of that worked. We are bruised. We're not Disney and Star Wars. We've learned our lesson. Let's try to do some more things that the people will like. And in the second season, they brought back Q, and they did a younger version of Guinan, and they did a time travel story that was very simple. We talked about this last year. That was somewhat aping Star Trek 4. It
was very Star Trek 4.
Yeah, right down to the joke on the bus, know, and all of that, which we talked about. But it wasn't, it's funny, we talked about it, we reviewed it, but if you'll remember, I hadn't even finished the season by the time we got to it. And I finally finished the last 3 episodes before I started this one a couple of weeks ago. And I remember thinking to myself, like, it's better than the first season, but so,
it's not a hard bar to clear.
Yeah. But, they certainly tried. And then it was like, all right, third season, and we're going, and this is it. This is the very last season of Picard. And it's almost like everybody at the round was just like, I have this picture of all of these like Zennials and Millennials sort of looking around the table, just utterly defeated, just throwing their scripts in the trash and going, how do we not get beat up on Twitter? Like, that feels like that was the major motivator for this season of Picard. It was, how do we do this and not get yelled at on Twitter by neckbeards? And someone was just like, reunite the TNG crew. That's all anyone gives a shit about. Just give them more TNG, bring everybody back. Don't make Jean-Luc Picard not the star of his own show, and people will be happy and we'll go out, like heroes the way we want to. And I'll let you respond to that first, Dave, because that was kind of my reaction to this whole thing. It didn't totally work the whole way. There's some things I have some issues with, but for the most part, this very much felt like Star Trek. So funny. Like, I've made the joke about Star Trek 5 and Star Trek 6. Star Trek 5 was so bad that the next movie was called Star Trek 6: The Apology.
Just
like,
about.
This felt like Star Trek Picard season apology.
Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah, certainly I got the feeling that when they started with this whole Alex Kurtzman-led Star Trek, like new Star Trek series, universe, whatever you want to call it, it was very much, we're going to make Star Trek for people who don't watch Star Trek. And they very quickly found out that people who don't like Star Trek
don't watch
Star Trek. And people who like Star Trek don't like what they're doing with it.
Right.
I mean, yes, there are those fans that do like it, and I wish them all the best. I wish I could understand.
Look, I live with somebody that thinks Star Trek shoot him in the face is this the best Star Trek ever?
I want to understand where they're coming from. Like I'm not trying to be an ass here. Like, I'm genuinely curious as to
anything led by a minority is good. That's about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I see. Yeah.
Anytime you want to come live here, anytime you want to trade places with me, please. Anyway, go on.
I'll keep that in mind. Yeah, I imagine I'll get down to Florida sometime in my life. I hope.
Bring your samurai swords. Anyway, Picard.
Okay. Yes, back to Picard. So, see, and like even with Discovery, you see, like when the first show announced, it takes place 10 years before the original series. But we're not going to have the Enterprise. There's not going to be any Spock. End of the first season. There's a mysterious ship coming, registration NCC 010. Like, okay, and then it's the Enterprise. Like, what's happening? Well, we're looking for Spock. I'm like, it was just, they're like, okay, member berries for everyone.
What's hilarious? And then we can discuss this for a little bit, and then we'll just get into the review proper.
Yeah, I have a few more points, but yeah.
Yeah, I want to hear them. But you said something, and so I've been going through my backlog of TikToks, my backlog of shows to put up for TikTok. Because you're in our group chat and I show everyone what I'm doing. And you'll notice I did one for the Lower Decks where we talked about, and I labeled it, the clip that I pulled was when we compared Star Trek to Star Wars. And we were saying, we were making the argument that Star Trek seems like a much bigger universe for people to play in. And the fans of Star Trek seem much more tolerant of doing different things with that universe. And I still think that's true, especially compared to Star Wars, which no one will tolerate anything that isn't lightsabers and Luke Skywalker, and only in the heroic way.
Or just bloated Imperial bureaucracy.
Yeah.
The reaction to Andor was really weird for those first few episodes.
Yeah, it's the second time you've made an Andor joke, and I don't get it. Because I haven't watched the show yet.
Yeah. Watch the show, and I think you'll get where I'm coming from. Like, the first 6 to 8 episodes are very slow and dull, and then it finally kind of starts to get moving at the end.
But I'll tell you, as much as we think that Star Trek is this bigger universe and more tolerant fans, to a point, because
I've seen some pretty nasty Star Trek fans online.
I was gonna say, like, Star Trek fans, I think, are more tolerant than Star Wars fans. It's almost like the difference between like Protestants and Catholics. But if you push a Star Trek fan way too far out of the wheelhouse, you get the backlash you got to season 1, where there's like an implied homosexual relationship between Picard and Data, and the focus is not on Picard. He's this doddering old man, and the focus is on the younger, hotter cast, and everyone's like, there's this trend in Hollywood, and we're going to talk about this on Thursday with Peter Pan and Wendy, of let's put the thing that everyone recognizes, the name, out front, but what it's really going to be is a focus on this other cast member that no one gives a shit about. And that was like the summation of Picard season 1. They're a little bit better about it in season 2, but not by much. And then season 3, they're just like, nope, he's a star. And so is everyone else from TNG. the Red Letter Media guys, I've been watching their reviews, and they were just like,
Yeah.
they just got rid of the whole cast. They kept 7 of 9 and Raffi, and that's it. And even Raffi, they kind of minimized. They like,
yeah, we can go into more detail on Raffi in this season in a bit. I have thoughts.
They gave her this B plot, and they were like, nope. They to sum up this point, and I'll let you respond, and we can move on.
Yeah.
They realize that we're willing to go with you a little bit, but we still want our heroes front and center. And if you're not going to do that, we're going to reject your show wholesale. And they figured that out in season 3 in spades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I always have a little bit of sympathy for any writers who have to deal with like franchises like Star Trek or Star Wars, and that, they have to ride that line of, you have to make the show different, but not too different.
Mm-hmm.
And us sci-fi fans, we're a fickle bunch. It's hard to, we're hard to please sometimes. I fully admit that.
It's not just sci-fi. It's fans of anything. Give us what we want the way we want it, but give us something different. There's a reason why the Simpsons made a joke about that. Like, give us hell, Quinn, but we don't know what we want.
Yeah. So with that being said, I think with Discovery, with first 2 seasons of Picard, it was just like Star Trek and Star Wars. I love them both, but I would have to say that Star Trek in general has had the better writing of the two. Like, it tends to go a bit more deeper, a bit more philosophical. Not to say that there isn't stuff of depth in Star Wars that is totally worthwhile, though I'd say Star Wars is a lot more character based, whereas Star Trek will kind of get a bit more philosophical, moralistic.
Lucas with the Force was playing with it with some Buddhist ideas, but Lucas himself is not necessarily a genius, and so he's playing with stuff in a very elementary way. The best stuff in Star Trek, and we talked about this when we reviewed the Orville. The best stuff in Star Trek and the best stuff in the Orville was when bright people got to ask interesting questions and used science fiction as a way of dealing with those ethical, moral, and scientific dilemmas. The art of science fiction is not space battles. It's solving.
I love me a good space battle, but
Oh, sure. But we talked about this with Lost in Space. The reason why you and I like Lost in Space so much, and we talked about this on those reviews, was they were solving problems with science. It's The Martian. I'm going to science the fuck out of this. Yeah. And
by trying to make clever, logical actions that result in the highest probability of success.
Right.
Yeah. We have a problem. Well, let's all stand in a circle and hold hands and talk about our feelings for 30 minutes. Right. While asteroids are smashing into the station, killing everyone.
Right. Or punch it in the face was my other favorite one. Yeah. And all problems can be solved with this black fist.
Yeah. Or empathy. Empathy solves all problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The best stuff in Star Trek was always and the Orville did this with aplomb. It was like, here's 2 equal sides of an argument. Yeah. And you as the audience member going, oh, I don't know how I feel about this now.
Yeah. Because I found this sort of new Trek, what I'll call it, everything Discovery and onwards. It's very preachy. It's very, we know what's right. We know what's wrong. We're smart. Everyone against us is dumb. We're going to tell you what you should be thinking. And if you disagree, you are stupid, wrong, and evil. Whereas if you look at more classic Trek, which definitely had a strong progressive bent to it.
Sure.
But yeah, you never got the sense they were so much straw manning their arguments. They always tried to give both sides a chance to air their best arguments. And even if in the end of the episode they had a position on those, they would often, they would treat it with a bit of nuance. And they'd even say, even if they, we think this is the correct decision, they would still even kind of have a bit of, well, there's still a price to that decision. And yeah, you're right. It was more about exploration of these ideas and making people think rather than telling them what to think. And I find it funny your comment about well, it's a minority-led show, therefore it is amazing. Star Trek has always had a diverse cast. Very famously, TOS had, Sulu was Japanese, Chekhov was Russian at the height of the Cold War. Uhura was a black woman. Spock was an alien. Wherever you go there, but it was a sort of
depending on who you ask. Spock was a Jew.
Yeah, whatever. We're not having that conversation here. But so, and you had the first interracial heterosexual kiss on TV, blah blah blah. Like for its era, it was quite progressive in many ways. And then Next Generation, they sort of added a bit more to that. Deep Space Nine, we had the first black captain. If you're making the argument that the captain is sort of the main character, lots of people love Captain Sisko,
right? Janeway,
and then and then Voyager, we had a woman as the captain, and again, like a lot of people like Janeway. So when you get to Discovery and it's just like, well, now it's a black woman and people hate it because they're racist. Like, no, like it's just a bad character, guys.
Right.
Like it's not like, oh, we like a black captain, we like a woman captain, but put the two together. Whoa, hey, that's too much. No, it's I mean, some people sure, but so I don't really think that's sort of the issue. I think it's just the writing just hasn't been so good. And like Sir Patrick Stewart said, that his conditions for doing the show was like no uniforms, no Enterprise.
Right.
This is kind of the equivalent of Kevin Smith's story about working on Superman, right? Where you have to do a Superman movie, but he can't fly, no costume, and he has to fight a giant spider.
Well, I think that's a really good point. Is I didn't even realize that. I didn't know that was a condition of the show, because it does change my perspective a little bit, knowing that, because I'm sitting here thinking it's all liberal, woke,
which is there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sitting around the table and trying to deconstruct this thing and going, can't we do this more for minorities and women and such, and let's put more progressive ideas in there and whatever else. And then and it's like, it's like, oh, poor put upon Patrick Stewart. It's like, no, Patrick Stewart's right there, like, no, this is all fine. I don't want to wear the stupid uniform anymore. I don't want to do the ship. And then,
I think he was looking for, he wanted to do Logan again, but with Star Trek, because he really enjoyed filming Logan.
Right.
And as an actor, I can kind of understand that.
But the point that I was making about like Star Wars is, I think people are, if people want something different, they'll find something different. But if they want to watch Star Trek, they want to see Star Trek.
Yeah. And like in the Orville season 3, like a large portion of that season was a very trans positive message.
Right.
And I didn't hear any drama at all about that. I didn't hear people decrying the show for it. Right. I didn't hear the showmaker saying people aren't watching our show because they're transphobic. It was just because they did their jobs and did a damn good job of presenting that.
Also, the Orville doesn't have this like 100-year legacy, and fan base. It was like, people watched the show, they saw what it was, they either stayed with it or they or they left.
Yeah. So like the basic point I'm trying to make is like the biggest problem is just the writing is not that good. Right. Like you could, again, Red Letter Media said, like you could do a show about where it's just Jean-Luc Picard traveling around the galaxy, having adventures on a ragtag ship that is not affiliated with Starfleet. There's no uniforms, or all the stuff Patrick Stewart said he wanted in the show. You could make that show work. The problem is they didn't.
Right. It's funny. The Mandalorian, just to make the final point about this, I think The Mandalorian is a really good example of what we're talking about, because as much as I'm sitting here like bashing on Star Wars and saying, it's a small universe with small fans that don't like a lot of big ideas, The Mandalorian is a really good example of what you're talking about. It was, let's take this bit of iconography, let's do Lone Wolf and Cub in space.
Yeah. Let's explore bounty hunters in Star Wars. We've seen them in the movies, but we've never seen the life of a bounty hunter.
And the first 2 seasons were great, and people loved them. Season 3, you guys.
I did a podcast last night about Mandalorian season 3. So if you if we want to talk Mandalorian season 3, listen to that podcast, viewers.
Yeah, exactly. But the first two, those first 2 seasons were nice and tight. And people really loved them, and it didn't have anything to do with the things that people like. Yeah, they threw the Darksaber in there, but there wasn't a lot of other iconography from the Star Wars series. Yes, they had Luke Skywalker in at the end, and season 2 was very much like a tour of shit people like. But even then, you'd have to be like fans of Rebels, or the Clone Wars, to pick up, because I didn't know who the hell Bo-Katan was. I mean, I knew who Ahsoka was, but my point with all of that is, when the writing is good, when the storytelling is good, sorry guys, people are willing to give new a chance, because good storytelling is good storytelling. I think when you have bad storytelling and it's way different from what you wanted out of this in the first place, there's where you start to run into trouble. All right,
Yeah.
so let's transition into the actual series.
Just final transitionary point here.
Mhm.
Yeah, so like I was dreading this season. I was like, I
we
am
almost
out.
didn't do it, Dave.
Yeah,
Dave,
we almost didn't
do this.
Yeah, because I was just like, no, like I'm done. I've done 2 seasons of this. They were both not good. Like I'm not gonna give my money to this show anymore. And I don't want to see all these beloved characters from Next Generation ruined by terrible script writing. Like the first trailer they showed for season 3, they had hologram Moriarty featured as a prominent villain in it. I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. We're doing hologram Moriarty as a villain in the season. Thankfully that they didn't, but like if what changed my mind was when a lot of people I've listened to online a bit, including Red Letter Media, said like, this actually looks good. And when I heard that they had a new showrunner, that was the moment that I really switched on, because like if you listen to any discourse about how like bad Picard seasons 1 and 2 were, Discovery was, someone will always say, well, Enterprise took 4 seasons to get good, or Next Generation, the first 2 seasons were really bad, which is true. Those shows really struggled early on. And
I've said every time we talked Star Trek, those first couple of seasons of Deep Space Nine, when they didn't leave the space station, were the most boring thing ever.
Yeah.
And I love Deep Space Nine.
Yeah. And there's a great documentary about Next Generation first 2 seasons called Chaos on the Bridge that William Shatner did. That might even still be on Netflix. I don't know. But if you haven't seen it and you're interested, well worth checking out. But in those, in both of those situations, the shows got good when they changed the writers and showrunners. Like it wasn't until Michael Piller came in on Next Generation that he was able to write the ship, get everyone focused, and establish how the show would work. He switched to the ensemble cast model, kind of got rid of some of the antiquated writing that sort of flowed in there. And same thing with Enterprise season 4 is they got a new showrunner. They sort of scrapped the Temple Cold War plot line, wrapped that up, and then started to do episodes sort of tying into future Star Trek events. So once I heard that had happened for Picard, it's like, okay, this actually stands a chance now, because maybe the new team, actually knows what they're doing.
Well, the hilarious thing was, this really will be the last point.
Yeah.
This show was part of like the great Radulich and Broadcasting Network purge of like, I'm social, I'm cutting everything. Some people are just not going to get the shows they wanted. Like there were certain things with depending, like if you could record during the day, like Alexis got to keep a lot of her stuff because she's available during the day. Yeah. Anyone that, like I was easy to like do stuff with Pat. One, we were doing boxing, but 2, he's available during the day. Like if you could only record at night and I didn't like the shows that we were doing anymore, I'm like, cut. Yeah. So like Picard, I was like, I'm not doing any more Picard. I'm sorry, Dave. And then I'd heard nothing but good things about this season.
Yeah.
And I was, and I'm going to say this, I was also missing Dave. I was missing
thanks.
I go back and I look at some of the stuff. Thank you. I go back and listen to some of the shows that we did, and I'm like, I have good conversations with this guy. Why aren't you doing more shows with him? Oh, because like everything that we picked to do sucks. So I can't go through another
Dark Times. Yeah,
I can't go through another Rings of Power.
Yeah, we're not doing Halo season 2, are we?
No,
Mark. Yeah, don't you dare. No. One wasn't more than enough.
All right, I'm gonna do something here. I'm gonna take myself off camera real quick, but give me your like first impressions of, like, I don't necessarily want to go episode by episode, but you can chunk this season into who, like the Beverly Crusher end of it. Like the first 2 people you come back are Beverly Crusher and Riker, and then we kind of transition into like Worf and Geordi. And then finally, I think at the end, like Data comes back. Yeah. Deanna comes back. By that point, we have the whole crew again.
Yeah.
I have to deal with this. So tell me about your first impressions of like the Riker Beverly Crusher chunk.
Sure. Yeah. So the show starts off on a really high note where it feels a lot like a Star Trek movie. Like they have like, in the 25th century, which is sort of an homage to the beginning of Wrath of Khan, where I think it was the 24th century. So the sort of idea that even if you're not a big Star Trek fan, you understand when this is all happening. It's the distant future. They did a good job sort of setting up a mystery arc. Something's going on and you can't trust anyone. And we have Riker and Picard trying to commandeer a ship to go and do their thing and have their adventure and rescue Dr. Crusher. That all set up worked really good. It was great to be back on a Federation ship. 7 of 9, they threw her in there too, which was great. And they gave each character a decent arc. Like they have, like Riker dealing with getting over the loss of his son, and how he's sort of lost sort of faith in life in the universe, and if there's anything more to life than just what we have. Picard is obviously trying to figure out what's happening with Dr. Crusher, because him and her were very close friends during the show. That's the only friend he had, in the senior staff in the original show. But like the writing just feels like the characters are talking like themselves. It doesn't feel like a bunch of liberal arts students, being babysat on a spaceship. Like everything kind of makes sense. It feels like these characters are back. And when we get the introduction of Jack Crusher, Beverly Crusher's son, and we find out that he is from a relationship her and Picard had, he's basically their love child, and she kept him secret from Picard. The bit where Picard confronts her about it, it's great because they both have a good point of view on why they feel the way they do. Picard is angry that he didn't get a chance to know that he had a son, and Crusher says like, well, you said you never wanted a son, and I was afraid that he would be put in danger because lots of stuff tends to blow up around you. And like it was a good heart to heart, and you kind of realize like both of them have made some bad assumptions, but both of what they did makes perfect sense, and they are actually hashing this out together. Yes, it's a very emotional, a bit conflict-ridden discussion, but you kind of feel like they work through their issues. Then
it's funny.
Like, it feels like adults talking about stuff instead of liberal arts students. Well,
we talked about like ethical dilemmas and debates in Star Trek, solving problems with science or whatever. But as one of the Red Letter Media comments was, nobody seems to know how to do drama without making it soapy. And that was certainly the first season of Picard.
I don't know. I think it might have been Critical Drinker did this, but he sort of showed, like here's, Kirk and Spock getting over like dealing with loss. And you have
you're right. It was the drinker.
Yeah. And I think it was like showing like, Kirk at Spock's funeral saying, of all the souls I've known in life, his was the most human. And like his lip kind of trembles and he pauses, and it's like you can tell he's just really torn up inside, but he's putting on a strong face for the crew. And then now here's how an emotional scene goes in like the Kelvin movies, and you see Spock screaming, punching Kirk furiously, and it's just like it's just so obvious and without the
but I wanted to
subtlety.
draw the contrast to like this was a very human dramatic moment. This is a mom, like not to say who's who hasn't gone through this, but it is a very likely thing that a mother would say to the father of her child, you're never around, you didn't seem to want kids, and everywhere you go, you nearly get killed. You're constantly being like captured, turned into a Borg, and my first job as a mother is to protect this child. And like you see where she's coming from, and you empathize with her argument, you sympathize with her argument, and going, wow, I see where she's coming from. And then you hear Jean-Luc's side of it. He's like, but I'm his father, and you didn't give me a choice. Maybe I would have chosen to do things differently. Maybe I choose to leave Starfleet. Maybe I choose to get guards around me at all times. Maybe I do, you took that choice from me. And that's a very powerful argument. And that's an argument that a lot of dads make. Like, there's a lot of talk about, not without, you have to get into a whole thing about this, but moms with regards to children, because they're the ones that birth them, make all the decisions as if the dad had no part to play. And there would be a lot of fathers going, nope, I was there. I was, I played a role, and that's my child, and I get a say. I get a vote. I'm not Puerto Rico, And where Picard season 3 is successful is showing the two sides of this very human, very emotional argument. And you as an audience member, maybe depending on your biases, you pick a side, but you can definitely see where both of them have equal footing. Both of them, you see where they're coming from, and you can see both sides. and it's a compelling dramatic moment, as opposed to the way a lot of television is written now, where the drama is very surface level. It's not particularly compelling, and it's all, it's like you were saying before, it's all
screaming and crying and
yeah, it's all someone screaming an agenda at you, and it's like, oh, this isn't interesting to me, it's like your first year college student coming home yelling his politics at you at the dinner table. You're like, shut up already. Sit down, nobody cares. So I really like that. One of the things, and when I left to go deal with my cough, I said, hey, what'd you think of the Crusher Riker stuff in the beginning? But I got to talk about, what is the captain's name? Shaw. And I don't want to reflect too much on the Red Letter Media stuff. This is our own review.
Yeah.
But they said something about him that I thought is good discussion topic, and that is how a character like Shaw is always so poorly written. Because I was afraid he was going to be the deconstruction character.
Yeah.
Because he's got such consternation with Picard in the beginning. And even at that, like, that was more like projection of my own fears about how poorly characters are written in modern Hollywood.
Yeah.
Than it was giving him a fair chance and kind of seeing his perspective. And his perspective is, I'm the captain on this ship. This ship has a job. I have a job. Seven has a job. We're all working in concert together to get things done. And these two pirates walk on the ship, and it's like, change direction, go here, do this, put my crew in danger. No, I'm not doing any of those things. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. Like they kind of do the whole thing where it's like, it's almost like Lord Beckett from Pirates of the Caribbean, where it's like, this guy's actually not the bad guy here. Pirates are not good for anything.
Right.
They kind of like go around and they like rape and murder and steal stuff. Like, so they kind of had to make him like this real asshole who hangs a child at the beginning of the third movie just to like make sure that you hate him and ignore the fact that no, actually he's doing the right thing historically.
Well, it's like my dad, I would ask him like why he doesn't watch shows like The Shield or The Wire, Oz, and he was like, I don't want to watch shows where you're supposed to cheer the bad guy.
Nick Nolte's the bad guy.
Like he's a valid point. Like a lot of the shows that we love, you're cheering the one breaking the rules.
Yeah, it's like, I don't want to cheer for a drug lord. Like, drug lords do bad things to many people. They destroy thousands of lives.
I don't want to sympathize with D'Angelo, but
yes, he's got a really nice house, but come on.
Yeah. Right. And so it's like, so there's Shaw, and he's like, no, you're not doing the right thing. I'm doing the right thing. And they drew back just from making him like detestable. Like they really focused in on like, he's got kind of a turd attitude. But
he's got a chip on his shoulder.
Right. Yeah. But and then you find out why, because his like family was killed by the Borg, and
he was one of the few survivors of a ship when he was an ensign. With the Borg. I mean, like that was the predictable reason. Is it he's something bad happened at Wolf 359, and he's bitter about that. Makes sense.
I enjoyed the performance. I enjoyed the characterization of him, and when they find out that Jack Crusher is Jean-Luc Picard's son, this is more than just a bounty hunter situation. Something stinks in the state of Denmark. Shaw isn't impossible about it, and like la, I'm not listening.
Yeah, he's not unreasonable.
Right. He's like, okay, when presented with enough facts to the contrary, I will change my way of doing things. But even along the way, he's still like, you've ruined a perfectly good ship in a perfectly nice day, you assholes.
Yeah, exactly. Everything would have been going according to plan and nice if you two hadn't shown up.
Right. I have to say, like, Beverly, she has the. It was nice to see Gates McFadden again. I enjoy her as an actress. She has the part in the beginning where she's like, trust nobody, and they're kind of focused on her, and then she's kind of out of it for the next couple of episodes until she's on her feet again. And again, I like her when she's finally able to do stuff. I enjoy what they do with her. But
yeah,
the
there's
way
one
they-
scene that bugged me with Crusher. I mean, you can finish your
Okay.
point first.
well,
Yeah.
I was gonna say
This is a really nitpicky, deep dive Star Trek thing, but yeah, go on.
well, over the 10 episodes, I think where the biggest success Star Trek Picard has is everybody gets good hero moments. Everybody is used sparingly.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, look, Beverly's back. We're going to move her off screen for a little bit.
Yeah.
We're going to bring her back to do a couple of things here or there, but we're not going to make her, she's not going to outshine Picard. Even Riker, they have him, pairing up with Picard, and, they have that one bit where Picard's like, why don't you fight? And Riker's like, because we're going to die. That's why I don't want to die. And Picard's like, no, stay and fight. And it almost sounds like Picard's like losing his mind. And Riker's like, get the fuck off.
Which is really weird because it would seem like it almost feels like it would be the opposite for them, whereas Picard's more the statesman, we should avoid conflict and settle things diplomatically, and Riker would be more the man of action.
There was no reasoning with the bounty hunter warship.
Yeah.
They made themselves very clear. Like, we have like all the nuclear weapons on this ship. You're never going to get away with nothing. And so Riker's like, I'm not fighting, I'm not going to fight an impossible fight that I can't win. And Picard's like, no, there's no reasoning with them. And even at that, like, I wasn't quite sure whose side I was on, because Riker's point is valid. Like, why are we picking a fight with a superior ship that we're outgunned 10-1 and we're going to get blowed up? And Picard's like, because, and like, I can see his point of view of this, like, they're not going to take prisoners. They're going to blow us up no matter what we do.
Yeah, it's either we either fight or we just wait to die.
Right. But then they do the thing where they get caught. I can't remember what the problem is, but essentially, like, they're dead in the water. They can't go anywhere, and they've only got X amount of oxygen left. And
they're falling in. They've lost like energy on the ship, and they're falling into the gravity of like a nebula. Or
but the setup was Picard pushed and pushed and pushed. I was like, fight, fight. And they finally do, and they fall right into the trap.
Yeah.
You with the portal. So they end up like shooting themselves in the back. At which point Riker just kind of looks at Picard like, you dumb idiot. Yeah. And like throws him off the bridge.
Yeah, like told you this would happen. Yeah.
And I thought that was like a nice, because I didn't want this to be the Mutual Admiration Society. I like the fact that I didn't want everyone to hate each other, but I like the fact that as we progress through the bringing back of the TNG cast, like, even when we get to Geordi, and he's like, why are you here? Don't come here. I can't help you. What's wrong with you? Like, I'm running a museum, for fuck's sake. Leave me alone. Everybody at first is like not tremendously happy to see each other. Like, we're all living nice lives. Why are you messing that up? And I thought that was, I like that approach to reintroducing the cast. It wasn't like somebody walks through the door and it's immediately, the swelling music and, oh, the heroes are here. Yeah. And by the same token, 7 of 9 gets some good stuff to do, has a nice arc in this season. Shaw gets some good stuff to do. He's a hero by the end of it. And Jack Crusher, who I think could have been easily written as a complete douchebag. Yeah. He won me over by the end of the season. Yeah. And then finally, Geordi's daughter, who's the ship's pilot. Yeah. They didn't fall into the writing trap of she's a busy businesswoman who don't need no man. She's better than everybody. She's the key to everything. She's Rey, Palpatine, none of that. At one point, Jack has to save her. Yeah. Like, wow. In the year of our Lord 2023, a guy saved a woman. Who knew? All right. What else you got for me?
Okay. Yeah. The one thing that bothered me with Crusher, not Crusher herself, is like when she's in the Titan's medical bay at the start and she's like analyzing one of the patients and she's like, doing it by touch because the sensors can't detect whatever it is the problem is. And the doctor is telling her, no, you go away. You're old. Your information's out of date. Let the young, more up-to-date people do this. It's like the doctor there was a Trill. So Trills, like their whole society is built around having these symbiotes that contain the memories of previous hosts that they've been in, transmitting, wisdom from the past through the generations. So like the one alien species that would have the most respect for the previous generations, and they make her the one saying, "Oh, you're too old. Get out of here, old timer. Okay, boomer. Let the millennials sort this out. We know what's happening." And I just kind of thought, like, if they just changed her to another species, I would have been okay with that. But again, this is like super nitpicky stuff, which kind of shows the quality of the season, that this is the level that the criticism's down to. But I kind of enjoyed how, like, they, with Riker, because his son died because they were doing a really poorly executed discrimination message in the first season, but they actually took that into part of his character with him dealing with that loss, and seeing Picard having the opportunity to have a relationship with his son and being like, no, like, you need to go, you need to talk to your son. No matter if he hates you or loves you by the end of it, you need this moment before you die, no matter what happens.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like a really good use of Riker. And it's, they had him be more of this is obviously Captain Riker, not First Officer Riker. He's more, into his own now, where we get to him butting heads with Picard. Like, that was all great stuff. And like probably my favorite scene of the two of them, which sort of really flies in the face of season 2 especially, is when they're like, they've escaped the ship and they're going to rescue Dr. Crusher, and they're flying into the nebula or whatever. And it's just like, well, would you look at that view? And then I think I forget which one of them says about it. It's the view that we spent half our lifetime trying to find, and the other half regretting abandoning the search. and like that exchange just sort of gets into like the idea of just like the wonders of exploration, and what the original, that spirit of boldly going where no one has gone before. It wasn't like, well, I explore space because my mom talked a lot about space when I was a child, but she had mental health problems and she committed suicide, and I found her body, and I am so racked with guilt that I felt that I needed to go and help people amongst the stars. Just like, people can just like space and be good people, damn it.
I gotta talk about the villain here.
Yeah.
I think her name is Vadic. I liked Vadic. I thought what's the actress's name? Something Plummer. I thought she did a really good job.
Amanda Plummer, I think it was.
Amanda Plummer.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Christopher Plummer's daughter. Yep.
Yeah. I thought she had the right amount of menace for most of the episodes that she's in, without becoming overdoing it. She's not Maleficent, but she's also there to do a job. And then, you find out when, that she's working for somebody else, and when she's failing, she realizes, like, I got to get my shit together here, or I'm going to get killed. There is no surrender. There is no working with these people. Like, I got to get this done.
Yeah.
And she shows like that a right amount of terror. As a big fan of DS9, I was glad to see, Changelings back, the Dominion, all of that. I was, and when I thought that was where this was going, I'm like, oh no, the Dominion's back, the Changelings, and in the not too far future, we're going to be getting the Secret Invasion series on Disney Plus. The whole idea of shapeshifters infiltrating society, and who do you trust, and that paranoia and all of that. My problem with this season is they allude to it, they point to it, they talk about it, they don't do anything with it. And by the time we get back to, we spend so long in the nebula and so long with the ship trying to get help, that by the time we get to Starfleet, like, it's too late. And by that point, the reveal is, oh, the Dominion's working with the Borg. Yeah, well,
it's a rogue group of shapeshifters that are doing this. It's not the official Great Link,
right,
in the Gamma Quadrant.
But my point that I was getting to was, and it kind of goes back to our first conversation about, like, sometimes it could be a little too much to rely on old favorites. Yeah, I
thought it was going to be the sort of insects from Conspiracy, but they have these like bugs that like crawl into your brain and they take over your body, because they had an episode where like they were infiltrating Starfleet in, like, I think it might have been a season 1 episode. It was one of the few decent ideas from season 1, though. Back in the 80s, they did not have the effects technology at all to do them. It's a pretty laughable moment when you see them. But if you look at the Shrike, like Vedek's ship, It
Mhm.
looks like one of those bugs.
Right.
So you
Well,
think, oh, this is they finally come to finish the job. And I know like Stargate's kind of done the whole alien parasite supervillain thing, but
here's
I
the
mean,
thing: we did the Borg a lot
Yeah.
in TNG. You know,
And
we
especially in
can't get it. We
Voyager.
can't get the fuck away from the best of both worlds
yeah,
at all. It is like mirror.
Yeah.
I'm like, how many times are we gonna do the same stupid story?
yeah,
We went back to the Borg in First Contact. We went
Yeah.
back to the Borg in the second season of Picard.
yeah, yeah. A lot of
For God's
Voyager.
Yeah, for God's sakes, fucking 7 of 9's Borg.
Yeah,
We can't get away from the Borg. And then finally we're like, oh good, a new villain. The Dominion's back. The Changelings are back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they're working for the Borg. God damn
Yeah.
it. That's when I wrote to you. I was like, because don't get me wrong. There's a lot about the season I really, really like.
yeah,
When I realized we got to the reveal that they were working for the Borg Queen yet again, that's when
Yeah.
I wrote to you and I was like, are we
Yeah.
completely out of ideas?
mm-hmm.
That annoyed the shit out of me because it was like, because here's the thing.
Mhm.
They've already defeated the Borg 2 or 3 times.
Yeah,
And in the second season, they made friends with the Borg. Because I think like Alison Pill's character, whatever her real name
Yeah.
is, like became the Borg Queen. Like
Yeah.
they merged.
yeah.
So,
So
like-
a Borg Queen at least. Yeah,
Yeah. So my whole thing is like there's no menace left to the Borg.
yeah,
At this point, we have 3 and 4 different ways we can defeat the Borg.
hmm
I don't need like while it was an interesting idea, don't get me wrong, the way they did it where it's just like they've infiltrated the youngest members of Starfleet.
yeah. They've turned our young crew into millennials. They're just destroying everything.
Yeah, like I like that idea. The problem is they didn't do anything with it. Like,
Yeah.
just as an example, Order 66 in Revenge of the
Yeah.
Sith. We take a few minutes of the movie and we show you Order 66. They didn't just like commence Order 66 and in the next scene,
Yeah.
all the Jedi are dead now.
Mhm.
No, like one of the few things about Revenge of the Sith that worked really well for me was they took a few minutes and they panned around to the different places where the Jedi were, and you saw the stormtroopers taking them out. It was
Yeah.
great.
Mhm.
What I needed here was, oh my god, all of our young have turned into Borg. Show me that.
Yeah,
They show you the ones on the Titan, but I would have loved to like
Yeah.
cutting across the vast breadth of Starfleet, and, you know.
yeah. We saw a bit of them on the Enterprise F.
Mhm.
Like, just
Yeah,
on the
I
view
needed
screen.
more of that. I needed to know
Yeah.
the weight of, like, there needed to be enough dread and menace in the
Mhm.
decision to do that, and you needed to show it. And they cut it too short to where it didn't feel. I didn't feel the weight of it, because that's a big
Mhm.
deal. Like, imagine somebody figured out like hypnotism, mass hypnotism.
Yeah.
Your youngest police officers and military, right? So it's like
Yeah.
you have police everywhere, you have deputies everywhere. Now
Mhm.
imagine anyone from the ages of 20 to 30
Yeah,
suddenly is mind controlled to kill you.
yeah.
What a terrifying thing that would be.
hmm
You got to show me that. You got to show me what that looks like. So that we can see the stakes of what our heroes now have to contend with. And they just cut away from it like too soon.
Yeah, it's I think it was a time or budget
Probably.
requirement. Like this show was not done on a very big budget. Like I'm sure all the Titan sets were reused from the Stargazer
Right.
2 from second season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I that's probably why most of the action happens in the Titan. Like they
Yeah.
have the Titan set, they have the Shrike set.
Why
That's-
everything is also
and then-
poorly lit. This is
Yeah.
a very dark show, and I don't mean like theme wise or
Yeah,
aesthetic
yeah.
wise. This is like literally like not well lit.
Yeah, it's like how do people see what's going on these ships? Like I
Mhm.
understand when you're in a battle that you need the lights dimmed for
Right.
so you can focus on the displays, but yeah, it was just like red alert lighting like all the time.
Yeah, for no good reason. Are we gonna talk about just because we're running low on time here, the Raffi
Mhm.
and Worf stuff? I do not love Raffi as a character.
No, well, she had a terrible introduction.
Yeah. She very much feels like the old writers were like desperately wanted her to be the star of this thing, and like
Yeah.
nobody gives a shit. So like, well, we don't want to get rid of her. It's like it's the one baby they wanted to keep, and like we
Yeah.
can't kill our baby. So instead, they made her a Starfleet intelligence officer, and she goes like into deep cover and has like a drug story. And I'm like, gosh, you can't even get the guy whose favorite show is The Wire to buy into this drug story.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, and I don't mean to sound like that guy, but it gets saved by Worf. And I
Yes.
love the idea that like Worf, because it's very easy to write Worf as a dummy, except that he wasn't a dummy in TNG, and he really comes into his own on Deep Space Nine. And anytime that you see Worf in the later years, you see the wisdom on him.
Yeah.
Like Worf is a very bright. They write Worf to be a very bright, thoughtful character. Yeah, he's Klingon. Yeah, he's a warrior class, but he's one of these guys where you don't, he's not a barbarian. Yeah. And so to have him be her handler, and he has to rescue her again. A busy businesswoman who don't need no man was saved by a big strong man. Like, how is this show not being protested? Worf had to save her and kind of put her in her place. And then like Worf and Riker go on an adventure together. And after a while, I just like, she shows up at the end of the show. Yeah. She's on the bridge with Seven in the command crew of whatever ship they're on. Yeah. And like, again, I look at her and I look at like, I'm glad she's missing for a lot of the show. Like after they kind of resolve that, after she ends up being reunited with Picard, and they compare notes and they go, "Oh, okay, like there's a bigger game afoot here." They take her away for a while, and they focus on other stuff to the show's betterment. Because she's not that great of a character, and like the actress is fine, but I was glad it was like we used her for what we needed her for. Now get rid of her for a while. What'd you think?
Yeah, I think pairing her with Worf was a brilliant move, because Worf acted as a really good sort of stabilizing agent against her. Like where you had her in first season, just like her just being bitter and angry at Picard for the whole season. Second season's like, I'm angry. I don't care if I screw up the space-time continuum, and Seven having to like stop her from destroying the space-time continuum.
Right. And the budding lesbian romance between her and fucking Seven that everyone thought was wonderful. It's a great idea.
Yeah. No comment. But but
look, like here's the thing. I don't care that it was there as such. It's more of like when there's so much of a focus on it, and it's not that interesting. Like look, I've watched plenty of shows with lesbian in them. They're great. This wasn't one of them. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. So she having this where she's kind of mostly getting her life back on track, but she still kind of has, these, she doesn't know when to hold back. Yeah. And then just having Worf, who's sort of, she's
learned how to be very,
she's a very petulant character.
Yeah. Whereas Worf, he's like very patient. He's very measured. Like, this is a person who has learned great self-control. Like it's a sort of, as a warrior, the greatest battle is between you and yourself. And he's sort of, he's fought that fight, and he's arrived at his destination now, and sort of him trying to impart that wisdom onto her about, we need to learn patience and self-control. Yeah. And her sort of starting to kind of key up on that. He sort of, he filed off the rough edges on the character a lot. And I thought that was good. The one thing I thought was a shame for Raffi was when she meets like her ex-husband, and it's like, I could put in a good word for you with our son, so he'll talk to you again, or I could give this information that could possibly save tens of thousands of people's lives, but I'm not going to do both. You choose. And then she hesitates, and it's like, ooh, just what I thought. It's like, you realize you're the one being the bad guy here, dude.
Right.
Like holding a woman's son relationship with her son for ransom against saving.
It was a dumb that was a dumb bit of writing, because like you can have both things. It's fine to like.
Yeah, it's like, buddy, you are not the good guy in this situation. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I can't really say too much about Raffi, but I thought they did a good job using what was left of her character from the previous seasons to actually like it being not terrible this time around. So good to them for that.
What did you think of the reintroduction of Data? Here's the thing, like when your premise to this entire season is we're getting the band back together. Yeah. You got to get everybody, right? Yeah. No one's dead. No one died in this cast. So you can so Brent Spiner's still around. But so on the one hand, how do you not do this without how do you do this without Data? Right? Yeah. Got to have Data back. My problem is they destroyed that character in season 1, just utterly obliterated it.
Yes.
They didn't do a great job of rehabilitating him in season 2.
Yeah.
With, whatever.
Well, that was one of the Sungs. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still
Spiner gets a paycheck.
Yeah.
So good for Brett Spiner.
So we get to this season, and I'm like, what else are you possibly going to do with this character that you haven't already done? Like I'm like, I love Brent Spiner, but I'm kind of sick of the Data character at this point.
Yeah.
And you can't not do it, but their way of writing around that problem, because I think somebody else in that writer's room had the same feeling as me. They're like, we've kind of destroyed this character. Everyone's sick of Brent Spiner. Maybe let's not do this. Like, we can't not do it. Well, how are we going to do it? Does anyone remember Evil Data? You mean Lore?
Yeah.
And I almost threw something at the television because I was like, this so feels like someone's writer's note of, what do we do with this character that's not terrible that we haven't done already? And the Lore stuff just felt like filler. Like I said, I really like this season. It's not perfect. And this was, there were some writing choices where I was like, did you not have enough story for 10 episodes?
Yeah. Yeah. I was just kind of happy with the original sort of what they had leading into the Kelvin timeline. If you read the comic, where it was just, B4 had all of Data's memories transmitted into him, and he just kind of became Data over time. And that was that. That was good enough for me. I didn't hate Data dying in Nemesis. Like, I understood why he did what he did. And, for more thoughts on Nemesis, listen to the podcast me and Robert did talking about all the TNG movies. But yeah, like I agree. I didn't like what they did with Data in season 1, where I think they totally missed the point of the motivation for that. Where, like in the first season, it's like they were able to like rebuild Data's brain, and then he just says like, "Okay, you've rebuilt me now. Please let me die so I can complete my journey as a sentient being." I think what they're referencing there is in the episode Time Zero, where they like find like Data's head buried on Earth. It's been buried for like 1,000 years or something. And Geordi's talking with Data in 10 Forward, which is on deck 10 at the front of the ship. Yeah. And Data's like, I'm not worried about this at all, because like, part of being human is to have a set lifespan. So the knowledge that at some point in the future, even though it's from the past, I will cease to function means that I am one step closer to achieving my goal of being human.
Right.
And it wasn't like, oh, I pray for the sweet release of death. It was just like, oh, someday I am going to die. And that's part of being, and you can't be alive without dying. So, I'm okay with that. And then you get to season 1 of Picard. It's like, please kill me. And they try and write this wonderful moment where he confesses his love for Picard, and Picard confesses his love for Data. And it was just like, no, like, put him in a body. Like, he's back. You've got Data back. Like, and then you killed him. Like, you had a perfectly good opportunity. But anyway, like I say, I understand they had to bring him back for something, even though like he was probably the hardest character to bring back at this point.
Yeah,
because they've said in season 1 like B4 didn't work out, and you had to be really dumb to bring back Lore, who's tried to kill all sentient life in the universe how many times now? Like, which is kind of funny because like I think of that like Daystrom Station, and like there's got to be like some real dumbass commander who's like, I've got some great ideas for some secret projects, boss. It's like, well, what are they? It's like, well, I think we should take some of the captured changelings from the Dominion War and do gain of function research on them so that they can't be detected by sensors and like blood screenings, and then they're going to be like super spies for us. Like, okay, well, how are they going to be on our side? Well, we're going to really torture them a lot. They already are xenophobic and hate us, so we're going to make them suffer infinitely more, and they'll be totally cool working for us after that. In no way are they going to be vengeful and now super powered and able to infiltrate us better.
Can we talk about that? How Starfleet has over the years from Kirk's era to now gotten more and more incompetent. Like as an organization, Starfleet.
Like, I almost felt they should have used that as like, well, it was the changeling infiltrators for making the Federation stupid. Like that would have been a great way of them explaining away. Like this is why the Federation just turned into a bunch of stupid assholes.
Yeah, I don't know how much worse it is in Discovery because I don't watch the garbage show, but I'm just thinking like from Kirk's era till
Mhm.
now, the kinds of decisions that Starfleet has made, it's like this, you know, if someone is trying to like mirror sort of the America, you in Canada may not know this, but a lot of people,
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
a lot of people refer to America as like the new Roman Empire, and that's not to say because we have this like wide expanse. It's because we're falling, you know, we're collapsing.
Yeah.
We are. I think Michael Moore states that he was even like brought that up, and I think it was Capitalism: A Love Story, where he was talking about like, you know, the comparisons between like Rome and its decline and America, and like, you know, cuts to a UFC fight where two guys like knock each other out.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I
unlike
feel like
wrestling, which is like so Greco-Roman. Yeah.
And I'm not going to get into all that,
Yeah.
but I do feel like there's a lot of, you know, in the when you think about, and I don't want to get into like the modern politics right now, but when you think about like what's going on in America now, and you know, sort of leanings towards fascism, and you know, the kinds of, you know, anti-human rights laws that are being passed here and there's I think there's probably a lot of anxiety among creative types about where America is going, and their sort of way of dealing with that in popular fiction, at least one way, is to have Starfleet mimic it. You know, like we'll show Starfleet in decline and making stupid decisions.
Yes, this is Trump's Federation now. It's kind of right.
Perfect.
You know, yeah, we're going to build a new neutral zone, and Romulus is going to pay for it, sort of thing.
Sure.
You know, yeah, but no, like I caught that too, especially with Picard. Discovery, not so much. Discovery is kind of a different era, different things, but certainly season 1 Picard is very much. This is like the xenophobic Federation. That's, you know, it's you know, Federation first policies and blah blah. Like it's pretty obvious what the social commentary is. I think what they miss with that is, well, yes, Star Trek has always been about using these future settings to explore present day issues.
Right.
The Federation and Starfleet itself has always been aspirational. Like, this is what we could be, that somehow we get through all the crap that's happening in whatever era we're in, and, you know, we figure it out, and we get to a better place.
I was going to say the 2 times that they had to use doomsday devices, there was like there was a real debate on the shows about whether or not they should do the virus that killed the Borg, or whatever it was.
Yeah, it was a geometric shape that would have crashed there. Yeah, if they looked at it.
And then whatever it was they were going to do to the Dominion, where
that was infecting the changelings with a virus that would kill them all.
Right. And there was like, well, are we?
Can't imagine why they would be angry about that.
Well, what I'm drawing a line to is like, there used to be in the writing this idea of, is this an institution that would weigh the pros and cons of genocide, or is this an institution that sees itself as strictly a military one and goes, we are under attack, so by any means necessary we will, you know, we will win, and if that is if that means it's genocide, then that's what we'll do. Which those 2 different things tell you a lot about that organization.
Well, that was very much Deep Space Nine, is, you know, like, how far do your morals and values go when you are facing being, you know, a killer be killed situation where it's either you live or the other side lives.
Well, it was the debate over the atomic bomb, wasn't it? You know, it was like, we have this nuclear device, it's going to wipe out an entire city if we drop it. Okay, but if we don't, the Japanese may never stop.
There's a lot more complexity to that that decision that I'm not going to go into, because
I'm really distilling that down to like
that is the very, very simplistic, not quite accurate, but it gives you the point.
Right. But I think that when people are writing modern Trek now, I don't know how much they're even considering an internal ethical debate. They're just like, no, this seems like an institution that would absolutely make all the bad decisions all the time. I'm like, I don't know how true that is. But that seems to be the way Star Trek gets written now. It's like, the individuals are okay, the institution is utterly flawed and decaying from the inside. I'm like, well, that's one take, and that's certainly a lot of, you know, that's certainly a reflection of how people feel about the United States now. That's also up for debate. Last thing I want to go ahead. Go ahead and make your point, and then we'll move on to the last bit.
Yeah, I mean it's I mean you're always limited by the abilities of the writers, like how big of an idea can they deal with, and I'll just leave that where it is right now. I mean I think that you really need, it's not necessarily always about just having good writers, it's also about having the right writers with Star Trek. It's a very unique property to write for.
Well,
in
sure.
many ways.
If you're like a young, I said this about another show recently where it might have actually been Looney Tunes. I was talking about it with Alexis, but something I was talking about recently where you're not getting passion writing. People that really like.
Yeah, these are jobbers.
Yeah, and like I'm a liberal arts major where I have a writing degree, and I went to Hollywood to write, and I got a gig writing Star Trek. I don't watch this shit.
Yeah, I highly doubt Alex Kurtzman really likes Star Trek. Like he's not. I doubt he's like a fan.
Right.
I mean, like I understand he's getting some sweet paychecks from this gig, so good on him for that. But whereas like Terry Matalas, I think he was like a PA on The Next Generation. He must have been super young.
But it's also like a producer-driven thing where if you're a producer and you're just like, get me some young whippersnappers that are that get Twitter and TikTok and and get them in here because they know what's going on in the world and tell me what's going on, kids. Write that shit in Star Trek. Okay, well that's what you're gonna get.
Yeah, as opposed to going into the sort of the problem of finding writers with life experience and like the sort of the skills to write good shows like that nowadays. Is that again? That's a whole other big topic. That
I mean,
that's another podcast.
I'll settle for writers that like appreciate Star Trek.
But it's not like Akiva Goldsman is an inexperienced writer.
But the other side of that is, and I was starting to say this earlier, and I don't think I ever got to it. One of the complaints I've had on DMU Hollywood as of late for the last little while is stuff gets remade, stuff gets rebooted, and a whole new crew comes in, and they come in with the best of intentions. Like not everything is just like it's just a gig. Yeah, they come in with the intention of I want to do really good here. Like I like Star Trek. My dad used to watch it with me. I want to do a good job with this. Okay, well I think I know what's popular about Star Trek. Phasers, beam me up, Scotty. Like they nobody knows. The people doing this stuff, they don't really know why it's popular. They think they know because they know this was the Star Wars thing. Yeah, they know people like lightsabers, so let's make sure we write lightsabers in there. Yeah, they know this. They like this. They like this. Without really understanding like the deep nature of why this appeals to the wide audience. Like I don't think there's that level of thoughtfulness that goes on in the writing. That being said, so this whole thing leads to
and then some of this is producers as well. Like let's not throw just the writers under the bus.
No, that's why I said
producers are also
if the producers are only looking for Twitter folk or whatever, they're not giving it much thought.
And also if you look at the opening credits to a lot of these shows, there's like 20 producers on the show. There's so it used to be you would just count like it was all like the main cast. Now it's like one screen. Here's all the cast, and then producer, executive producer,
assistant more producer than VFX fucking workers.
Yeah, just about.
So the last thing, and kind of the grand finale of this, and I wrote you about this when it happened.
Yeah.
I'm not like the most emotional, like nostalgia person, but this one got me when because they wrote a situation where they're like, we need an analog ship, one that's not connected to the hive. So
it's not an analog ship, literally.
But so they get the old Enterprise from TNG out, and the whole crew is sitting there. Boy, this stopped being Star Trek Picard, and this just became the TNG fucking reunion special.
Yeah.
And I cried. I was like, oh, man, the music. They got me. I can't even front. They were like, all right.
I had a big grin from ear to ear on my face for like the last 10 minutes of the ninth episode. That was just, you got me, guys. You got me.
Yep. And honestly, I wish they just ended it there because that next episode, oi.
Okay. I didn't think it was too bad, but it's
a lot of like, well, first of all, the Borg Queen annoyed me, but it's a lot of time spent aboard the Borg ship, and then the whole resolution is, the bad guy going, Jack is the Borg, and you don't understand, and Picard going, no, Jack, be human, I love you, and it was so much melodrama.
Yeah,
and on the one hand, I like the tension of everybody that got turned into a Borg is about to kill everybody. Like, we are seconds away from winning the bad guys. And they blow that ship up in the ta-da nick of time. Oh, and by the way, the pitch meeting for Top Gun Maverick, where he's like, and we're going to go into this cavern and we're going to make the 1 in a million shot. You're doing a Star Wars. It's not a Star Wars. And,
and his targeted computer malfunctions. Yes, it's a Star Wars.
Yeah. And I'm watching this and I'm watching them take out the Borg ship. And I'm like, they're doing a Star Wars again. Like, do we not have any new ideas in Hollywood? They totally did a Star Wars at the end of Picard season 3. Yeah. They blew up the second Death Star.
Yeah, the second Borg cube. Yeah.
Yep. That's what it was. It was like the second Death Star. It was like,
pretty much.
It was Lando's run. But I was like, I looked at it and I was like, at this point, like whatever makes the people happy.
Yeah.
All right. So give me your final thoughts here on Picard season 3 and the reunion special. Yeah.
So in addition to the gain of function research on changelings, they also decide, let's go and like build a age appropriate to Brett Spiner version of Data, and we'll put in Data's brain, Before's brain, and Lore's brain. So we'll leave this highly manipulative, vicious, AI that wants to basically destroy all organic life in the universe. We're going to give it an android body and put it in a space station full of all of the doomsday weapons we have collected over centuries. Like, who is this moron making decisions in this organization? Like, it's like, like they're the real villain. In my headcanon, his name is Commander Kurtzman, but
okay.
But anyway, it was like the Data stuff was pretty predictable. Like, I figured that it would look like Lore would win, but Data would really sneakily transfer all his memories into Lore, and and then that happened. And like, I like the payoff in that you get basically a version of Data that is more human now. Like, he has more natural emotional responses, even though they gave him an emotion chip in the movies. But it's sort of like that was Data's arc, where he sorts out his baggage with Lore, and he's able to kind of realize, becoming quote unquote fully human. I kind of wish they had painted his skin white again. I'm pretty sure Brett Spiner just said, like, look, knock $1 million off my paycheck just so I don't have to do the stupid makeup. I'm too old for this crap anymore. Right. I'll do the contacts. There we go. Split the difference. But I mean, fair enough. I would say that seeing Brett Spiner acting as Data and Lore, like, he hasn't lost a step. Like, just fantastic performance. The man is
credit in the world to Brett Spiner. I'm just sick of the character.
I get it, but I mean, as like they were backed into a wall there. Like, it was either we need to do something contrived to get Data back, or there's no Data, and if we do no Data, then people are going to complain, where's Data? And a lot of this is making the best of a bad situation, and I thought they did a great job of it.
Should have brought back Commander. What was it, Commander Yar?
Oh, Ro Laren. That I thought was kind of strange, them bringing Ro Laren back as a Starfleet officer after she joined the Maquis.
No, I'm talking about the blonde that made the.
Right. Sorry. Yeah, Tasha. They showed like the hologram of her.
They should have brought her back.
Yeah. Denise Crosby probably would have. I'm kind of surprised they didn't actually. But yeah,
they're probably the only dork that wanted it.
Yeah, I'm not really into Tasha. I think like they could have done more with Sela, which was like the evil Romulan half daughter that she had. Like, they could have done more with her than to just have her be another mustache twirling Romulan villain.
Sure.
Given the back, but anyway, that's another rant for another time. But so we got a nod to Denise Crosby at least. So hey, good for that. Then bringing Ro Laren back, since I got on that tangent, that was. Like, I would assume that, during the Dominion War, when the Maquis and the Federation were on the same side, it's like, we don't care. We just need bodies to fight in a war. Like, your record is expunged. Go fight. But I do find it odd that they sort of had her be at odds with Picard about the betrayal. Because when you watch the episode where she does the betrayal, where like Riker's sort of working with her, and she like pulls a phaser on him and, says, sorry, I have to go off and do this. And then she said, just, do one thing for me. He's like, tell Picard I'm sorry. And he's like, I'll do that. And Ro, take care of yourself. Like, it kind of felt like, yes, there would be a conversation between the two of them, but I don't think it would have been as vicious as the conversation that they had. Yeah. Like Picard's not an idiot. Like, he would have understood, like, I have a Bajoran officer who was sent to do a deep ops thing against assisting a bunch of Federation colonists who are being massacred by Cardassians. Like, yeah, high probability she might switch sides in this. Understandably so. Like,
Sure.
But anyway, I digress. But it was nice to see Michelle Forbes back in, and like I think even though they killed her off, it was well executed, no pun intended. So yeah, that was just off the top of my head. I'm on fire tonight. Anyway, the gain of function research with the changelings, I've been sitting on that for a month.
Really stuck in your craw, huh?
Yeah, I'm like, ooh, that's a good one. That's a good line. Yeah. Anyway, that was good. Like I thought, yeah, having Geordi be in charge of the Federation Museum, which is just massive member berries that episode. That felt like good for where Geordi would be. I like his relationship with I think it was Sydney, his daughter, where it's not the whole like, you need to let me go, Dad, and be my own thing. It's just more like, he's an engineer, but she wants to be a helms person, like, and they sort of are able, and it's like, he wants to keep his children safe, but you're in Starfleet. It's not the safest place.
Also, it's like, I want you as my child. I want you to do the thing that I like. And the child's like, but I'm my own person.
Yeah.
Facts.
Yeah. It's not entirely there. You're not entirely wrong there, but I think that it was muted enough that it didn't feel super cliched.
That's the thing. I said this before about Jack Crusher, and I think you could say it for the whole show. I think the best job they did as writers was towing the line between no one is awful, like nobody is I can't think of the word I want to use here, but like just utterly intolerable as a character, where you're like, I wish you'd get blown up. Yeah,
you understand where they're all coming from.
Insufferable. No one is insufferable on this show.
Exactly.
Which, because that is a problem with a lot of TV shows where your whole cast is insufferable. You just want everyone to be like, killed by the villain.
Yeah.
It was nice in this one. So take me home, Dave.
I'm getting there. Okay. Worf. I think did you think there was a bit of Drax in Worf in this season? Like him sort of like saying a bit of the like odd man out type stuff.
Yeah, he was a little concrete.
I felt a little Drax influence, but I like how each character sort of had their own little arc in the show. It was all well balanced. Like I even like at the end where they said, we want to rescue Jack, but we only have a minute to do it. If not, we're going to have to blow up the whole cube with him in it. And Dr. Crusher was like, she's like, okay, like, I don't want my son to die, but I understand if we don't do this, we're all screwed. Yeah, the greater good. Yeah, like I like that where the emotion is there, but also we also need to kind of be rational about this,
right? Like, no one's insufferable and no one's acting like everyone. That's the other thing is you got to remember.
It feels like adults are present in this show.
I was going to say that, like, it's a military institution, and these feel like serious people who, yes, they have their preferences, but they understand what their job is.
Like lots of member berries in the show, but I do appreciate how they all kind of served a purpose. And sort of knit together into something that worked.
They wrote things into the story organically as opposed to shoving something in front of the camera. Like, you happy now, bitches?
Yeah, this isn't like in the first episode where Picard goes to his storage locker and it's like the Captain Picard Day banner and like, oh, I remember this. I remember this. I remember this. Like, these are all things that I know from that thing I like. It was they made good use of it. And I think even if you're not super deep into the lore, you kind of you can follow along enough to understand.
Nothing felt forced.
Exactly. It was a good use of existing stuff that they were able to weave together into a coherent plot. Like I thought, I'm not a big fan of the Titan's design, the Titan 2 refit. It's the impulse engine array is too big on the back of the saucer section, and like the deflector dish hull is kind of blocky. It just ruins the lines. I know it's just picky ship stuff, but that's my thing. I thought the Borg plot was not a bad idea in the end, and then we sort of see like the Borg after having survived Janeway barely. Sort of like last ditch effort.
Here's the thing: I think I would have been more appreciative of the idea that the Borg wasn't the big enemy in the end, but more of this group of changelings using Borg technology.
Yeah, that could work. Yeah.
We stole the Borg technology so that, and we combined it with changeling DNA and then put it in the transporters. And so now we, as part of this new Great Link, can control through Borg technology the young Federation officers from the ages of 12 to 30, 20 to 30. Like I would have been okay with that. Like, okay, cool. I actually like that as an idea. When it was like, once again, the stupid Borg Queen, I was like throwing shit at the television. I was like, oh my God, I'm out of this already.
The Borg Queen was a studio note. The writers never wanted a Borg Queen, but the producer said we need a central villain for First Contact. So they had to, but again, taking what already is there and making it work, I think they did a pretty good job at that. Like a lot of this comes from, one, I always wonder, like the Shrike does not look like a Dominion ship. That bothered me. And like, if it's all crewed by changelings, why are they looking like bird people? Like, anyway, I mean, again, like, it's a good sign that I am being this picky in my criticisms of this season. That this is stuff I have to go to for criticism. But the big thing is like, and I'm gonna again steal a bit from Red Letter Media's notes. Like Nemesis was so horrible ending for the Next Generation crew. Yeah. Like it was just like, well, that kind of sucked. We got our asses kicked, but at least we're still alive.
No, yay. You know what? As a mea culpa redo of the TNG finale, or TNG movie finales, because the TNG finale was just fine the way it was. Yeah. But like, if you were looking for a better send off than the one they got at the end of the TNG movies, Picard season 3 fills that role nicely. Yeah, and that's kind of, I think, what they were setting out to do, and they did it. But yeah, you look at how the original series got their ending in the movie, where like they have the film, which is all about sort of dealing with past grievances in a changing world, and are we still relevant in our views, so forth. And it ends with them growing a little bit, and they save the Federation and the Klingon alliance, and they get to stand up in front of the Federation Council and the Klingon diplomats, and they all get applauded, and then they're back on the ship, and there's like, oh, we're to report to space dock for decommissioning, and Spock goes, if I were human, my response would be go to hell, and everyone looks at Spock. He's like, if I were human. And then final course, Captain. He's like, second star to the right, straight on till morning. Yeah. And the ship just like goes right into the sunset, and you got the nice music, and you have Picard going, other generations will go into their own undiscovered countries, boldly going where no one has gone before. And it's just like this wonderful transition between the the opening dialogues from the 70s versus the 80s, and they do the music and the signatures, which the Avengers totally ripped off. And then we have Generations and First Contact. Yeah, I mean, I again listen to our podcast on those films, but it was just such a wonderful send off for that crew. Whereas you just get Nemesis, where it's like, well, we're still here. We kind of got the shit kicked out of us, and maybe there'll be another movie. Yeah, no, there wasn't. No, but so there are things to critique about. Can we say that we're done with this now? I don't want to see these characters anymore. I agree. I'm okay with having the odd cameo in whatever they do going forward if Star Trek Legacy becomes a thing. But like just like a small cameo. I don't even want that. I don't even want that. Like I can't. First of all, Jean-Luc Picard is 1,000 years old. Yeah, I'm not talking Picard. It would be more like Sydney La Forge. She's going on leave, and she's talking to Geordi, just something small like that. I wouldn't mind seeing. I get Raffi out of there, but I wouldn't mind seeing the further adventures of. I'm pretty sure Raffi's gone. Yeah, thank God. If they do a show or maybe a streaming movie, because you can't put that shit in theaters. But if they do a streaming movie or a show of an adventure of Seven of Nine's crew. Yeah, I really like. Oh gosh, what is her name? I think it's Jerry Ryan. Yeah, I really like Jerry Ryan. Well, she's great. She's an incredibly talented actress. Right, and I think of Voyager, where she got the unthankful role or the thankless role of sexy robot chick, but was actually able to really bring some depth and good character to it. Her Trisha Helfer. We didn't talk to a tremendous amount about her on this review, but I think she's been she has been the most solid part of Picard all 3 seasons. Yeah, she's always turned in a good performance. We shit all over season 1, and rightly so. Yeah. And we shit mostly over season 2. Yeah. And here we've been very favorable, very pleasant towards season 3 with some criticisms. But if someone was like, gun to your head, you neckbeard you, say one nice thing about Picard, the entire series, Jerry Ryan. Jerry Ryan, in many ways, and probably purposely so, outshone Patrick Stewart. And I would watch a show where she's the lead because they've done such a good job with her character.
Yeah, no, she had a good arc, sort of finding her way as to like, do I have the confidence to be a captain even though I'm not a by the book?
Well, I like the fact that she also struggled with loyalty to Jean-Luc versus loyalty to Shaw, and loyalty to just her own duty. Like, because unfortunately, because of the way they wrote Kirk, there's this like belief that the best characters are the ones that rebel against this giant institution that is often unfair and myopic. And it's like, can we remember this is a fucking military institution, and when you don't obey rules, people die.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say Kirk was that rebellious. It was just more like he knew when to bend the rules and when to break the rules when it was necessary.
But it makes the fans think like that's the way it should always be. And I like the fact that, and the reason why I'm bringing that up is I like the fact the way they wrote 7 of 9 is she is duty bound. She understands where she is. She's trying to do the right thing. But she's being pulled in a couple of different directions, and you could see like the tension within her. You can see the conflict, which is it's some fairly nice writing overall. And I'll give you the final word on this.
Yeah.
As great as I think season 3 is with its flaws, I'm glad they're done now. I don't want to see this crew. I don't want to see Picard and the TNG crew anymore. I'm knowing when to walk away.
Yeah.
Is a skill I'm finding out, and I think they gave the cast a send off they deserve. Don't ruin it by doing anything else with them. Let them go. Let this go. Yeah. Come up with some new ideas, or take some of these old ones and play around with them. Like I said, give me a 7 of 9 show, but enough with the TNG crew already. We're done here.
Yeah, and the nice thing about Star Trek is you are not set on having the exact same characters in each show. Like you can go and do a new show with a new cast. You just again need to have it well written.
Do you remember when fucking what was it? Walter Doohan, that's fucking Scotty.
James Doohan,
James Doohan showed up in fucking TNG, and he was the size of like William Howard Taft. Like, come on, like stop dragging these fucking poor actors on camera. Like they don't leave them alone.
I actually really like that episode, Relics, but I think your biggest criticism of this series, I think, was like just a lot of member berries. Again, it's like where's the new threat? It's all just recycling old stuff, and that makes sense. But again, from the perspective of giving the TNG crew their send off, it makes sense to kind of have it be with the villains from their.
They can't do the Borg anymore.
The Borg need to be done or very very minimalized. Like
I don't mind bringing back the changelings, especially the way they did this. Like, the changelings are still out there and they're pissed. Like if we're doing another Star Trek show and you want to rely on some old stuff, it's like at this point to do the Borg again would be like doing the Klingons.
Yeah, again with the Klingons.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Last thing, and then we're gonna close up. But I remember when that one opening season of DS9 and like the Klingons invaded Deep Space Nine, and I was like, really? Like, I mean, they wrote it well, and it made sense, narratively. But there was definitely a voice in the back of my head even then going, they've been at peace with the Klingons for like a century now. Why are we doing this?
Yeah. But I think a lot of this is, it's like if you listen to like the review we did of like the last Hellraiser movie, well, the network, not me, because I'm a big weenie when it comes to horror. But I think it was Robert was kind of saying like, look, like this film, it's okay. It's not great. But considering that the last 5 of these we've had have been utter garbage, we're just happy to get something that's not utter garbage. Yeah. And it's almost, I think season 3 of Picard, which I do think is good in its own right, gets a bit of a boost from that. It's like, it's just nice to see a Star Trek show that's like well written with like respect for the source material. And again, with characters like adults. So the big question I think to leave off with here is like, where do we go from here? What is the next? Like, are we going to get Terry Matalas doing more Star Trek in the future? Is Star Trek Legacy going to be a thing? We still have Kurtzman pursuing his own projects with like Starfleet Academy, and apparently we're getting a Section 31 movie this time around again.
Yeah, first of all, I want to see Quentin Tarantino's Star Trek.
Me too. I think that would be really interesting to see what Tarantino would do with it.
He has Tarantino has such a vision, such a love of the movies and television that he grew up with, that I trust Tarantino with just about anything, because and it wouldn't even be like, come on, Tarantino, let's see what you can do with Star Trek. I just want to see what he does, period.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always interested in like what Tarantino comes up with. But other than a Tarantino Star Trek, I would like to see Star Trek get back to science fiction and not science action.
Yeah, or science drama. Like, give us a bit more of that big idea stuff.
Here's the last thing I'm going to say, and then we're done.
Yeah.
You asked what's next? Anyone currently working at Paramount or CBS or whatever company currently owns Star Trek that's in charge of writing a Star Trek show has to watch all 3 seasons of Lost in Space. Do that. Okay? Do that. And then also watch Foundation. Don't do that.
Yeah.
don't do anything that you've been doing up to this point. Just none of that. No 3 Star Trek movies with Chris Pine. No Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah, well, that's wrapping up now.
Though I've heard, and this is actually is a nice transition here. So in the great purge of 2022, and I stopped, and I had to cut back for social activities. One of the things I was like, I'm only going to record with like these few people, and that's it. That's all I'm doing. And it was like, and then after a while I was doing that, and I was like, but I miss my friends. I miss talking to this person. I miss talking to that person, and trying to find the balance of, I have to load up my week with 5 shows so I can accommodate everyone versus I'll get them. No one's going to cry if they only record with me once a month or so. Everyone will be fine with this. Just kind of get everyone kind of gets a turn, and we'll just keep going like that. And some will be more often than others. Obviously, Damn You Hollywood's weekly. But, I think if everyone kind of gets a show here or there, everyone's happy, and they can all then go off and do other things. And that's when I was like, okay, we're wrapping up Picard. Well, what else can I do with Dave besides, you showing up to a Damn You Hollywood hither and thither? I was like, I fucked him on Strange New World. I should probably get that back on the schedule. And so I did.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't totally my fault, nor was it the fault of my social life. That was the hurricane.
Fair enough.
But I was like, okay. The other thing about it that I realized is, if we don't do these completely contemporaneously with when like the show ends, who gives a fuck? At this point, either you're listening to my podcast because you like me and my friends and you want to hear what we say about things, or you don't. But it's not like, we have to. When I thought I had to be in the window of when things were being talked about, I was killing myself.
Yeah.
And I'm not willing to do that anymore. But I am willing to talk about things with my friends when I have time. So that being said, Dave and I will be back for 2 seasons later in the year of Strange New World. Season 1's already out on Paramount Plus. We will get to it in the near future. And then Strange New World Season 2 is actually starting up fairly soon. When that wraps, we'll get that on the schedule, and we will review it for you. We'll have more of this wonderful conversation. But in the meantime, in between time, David will be back on Monday along with Alexis and Robert, and we'll be talking Guardians of the Galaxy 3, the best Guardians of the Galaxy, from what I understand.
Yeah, I should probably buy my tickets.
I'm taking my kids to go see the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy marathon tomorrow, as a matter of fact.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And that's it. That's all I got on the schedule for you, bud.
Yeah, I think it's just right now Strange New Worlds, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and that's it for now. I think we should still try and do Legend of the Galactic Heroes at some point.
The fuck is that?
It's like a space opera anime type thing. Like if you're still on Crunchyroll, give it a look. Like just watch the first season, like 13 episodes.
Okay. I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, if you don't like it by the end of 13 episodes, it's not going to change your opinion after that.
Okay.
I have a reason for this.
So, Jesse and I are currently doing the David Simon stuff. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, I don't want to not record at least once a month with you once that wraps up. So we should find another television show. We don't have to do something as big as like all the things of David Simon. We can just pick a show we want to talk about. And then Ronnie was like, we should get the band back together and do Sons of Anarchy. And I was like, okay. I had been thinking about with you, just kind of going through every season of various like Star Trek shows. Like there's some I haven't watched, and there's some I never watched all the way through. Like I would love to revisit Deep Space Nine, one season at a time. I would love to actually sit through all of Enterprise because I've never seen it.
Well, you might need to eat those words, but yeah, I myself have not sat through all of Enterprise. That is one of my blind spots with Star Trek. So maybe we can do that together.
Yeah, I was gonna say like I don't plan on stopping podcasting anytime soon. I just don't want to do it more than twice a week.
Yeah, well, I try to find stuff that you would find interesting that would also be neat to talk about. So like Pacific Rim, we don't really talk about that anymore because they're not making any stuff out. But but you're into like mental health and giant robots, and that's basically Neon Genesis Evangelion, which is like one of the main inspirations for Pacific Rim. So that's something you could look in, and it's only 26 episodes if you don't go into the movies. But
well,
these are conversations for another time.
But yeah, I definitely at some point thinking about future podcasts. Like, hey, David, let's commit to this entire run of this particular Star Trek show once a month or so. Yeah. Because I like talking to you, and I enjoy these Star Trek reviews.
As do I.
All right. That being said, yesterday, Alexis, David, Andrew,
Zach.
Yeah.
Andrew, not Graham.
Andrew, not Graham, and Zach, not the Lego Maniac. They did The Mandalorian season 3. How was that? Was that good? You guys have a good time?
Yeah, I think so. I think we were we enjoyed the show.
Okay. Tomorrow on a special edition of Damn You Hollywood, and it's Wednesday at noon as opposed to Tuesday now. We'll be doing, and the reason why is because this is when Pat was available and he didn't want to miss out on this. We'll be talking the Big George Foreman, and then an extra Damn You Hollywood this week. And then again another noon show to accommodate this because I don't have time to record at night anymore, more than twice a week. But I did want to talk about Peter Pan and Wendy, and the reason why we're doing this is because Jason Teasley is a troll and started a whole thing in our group chat that Peter Pan was a grooming, child trafficking pedophile. And that sparked a whole other thing where Robert Winfrey's like, I never got to do it. Everyone loves a bad guy, Peter Pan, where Peter Pan is the villain of his own story. And after I had an aneurysm, I said, great, let's talk Peter Pan and Wendy. And after 10 minutes of that, we can do your...
And people wonder why I don't follow the group chat anymore.
People wonder why you mute it. And so Robert Winfrey is going to do an impromptu Everyone Loves a Bad Guy for the first time on video, Peter Pan, where Peter Pan is the villain of his own story. And I will try to not do drugs live on the air. And Alexis Hayner will be there too.
Oh boy.
So that's what's... Yeah. We've got more We've got more Panic Fest stuff this weekend. We've got an interview with the team behind Laced on Friday. We've got another Everyone Loves a Bad Guy. I think this was the comics finale. He's finally got around to independent comics. And then the Jonas Exodus is finally over on the Metal Hammer of Doom back in 2014. I'm back and better than ever. And I'm back with Goat Whore. We did a review of Constricting Rage of the Merciless back in 2014. So that'll be up for you to listen to on the 7th. Next week, like I said, we got Guardians of the Galaxy. And then because this is May the 4th Be With You month, Star Wars month, the Metal Hammer of Doom, we're going to be looking at Galactic Empire Special Edition, the new Galactic Empire record. We're going to review that. We're going to talk some Star Wars on the Metal Hammer of Doom jukebox. That'll be fun. And that's all for me. Thanks. I'm driving. Dave, always a pleasure.
Yeah.
All right. This has been a review of Star Trek Picard. Sorry about all the coughing. My allergies are killing me tonight. So I tried to hide that as much as I could. With that said, be well, be safe, and live long and prosper.